Hello, Guardians, and welcome to episode 114 of Podcast vs. Enemies, a Destiny podcast dedicated to the PvE sandbox. We're back to the basics this week with some weapon breakdowns and likely a shorter episode after our last one. Impetus, how you doing? What have you been up to this past week?
Hi, Saint. Hi, Court. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I've been getting back into Destiny. I actually knocked out quite a few things that I had on my expansion / episode to-do list. I did finally get all of the Echoes weapons unlocked for crafting, wrapped up Sightline Survey and Aberrant Action, went ahead and crafted Aberrant Action. Really love that. Pretty much the weapon I think we all expected to be incredible, and it has absolutely lived up to my hype as well. I did finish unlocking all the prismatic aspects, supers, grenades, and melees on Hunter, so that's all done. And then I've also been grinding out a few overthrows on Hunter and did get quite a few exotic class items already. Still, none of the ones that Court talked about last episode, which are also the roles that I'm interested in, but still some pretty good combos. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that I just feel like the Hunter one is just so rich with interactions, so it may not be something that I'm eager to look at or play with, but there is a synergy there. Let me see, what was the one that I had? I've gotten a few doubles, so let's see. Spirit of Assassin and Gerfalcon, so getting invisibility, and then my void weapons get volatile rounds when I come out of being invisible. Not one I was chasing, but one that, it can work. It would be kind of fun. I've gotten Caliban and Coyote, so Caliban giving me the powered melee final blows at ignitions, and then an additional class ability charge. I could use that to get my melee back, which would be nice. And then Foe Tracer and Verity, which I don't know if that's going to be kind of a PvE or a PvP one, where damaging a combatant or a guardian with an ability grants temporary weapon bonus damage, but then weapon final blows that also match give grenades a stacking damage bonus. Like, there's definitely a feedback loop there, but I don't know. I'm looking at it like, well, I'll hold on to it and play around with it and see what I got, and maybe I'll come back around to it. I've also been getting Ergo Sumes. I did get an Arc Conductor roll. This was Caster Frame. Yeah, so I'm excited to try that one out. That one sounds very silly. And then just been working on catalysts. Tessellation is taking forever, and I do not like that gun. Red Death is also taking forever, but I do like that one. So, two sides of the same coin there. And then I put together a hazardous propulsion build on my Titan. I look like a mech, and I love it. I love it a lot. Very, very fun. I'm not quite sure what element. I think I'm going to make the build kind of element agnostic. I'm on Prismatic right now, and that's been, fun, all that good stuff. But I wanted to put it together with a stat distribution that would at least be good on multiple elements so that I could swap over to stuff, depending on the artifact. So that's kind of all I've been doing. And then the very last thing that I just did was just started Divinity Original Sin 2 with one of our patrons, longtime patrons, Just K12. So we spent about most of the hour and a half making our characters and talking about things. And then we've spent about maybe 10 minutes probably actually in the game. But I'm loving it. I haven't played that type of game in a long time. I started the original Sin 1 and played that for maybe an hour and then took a break and went somewhere else. So yeah, get back into that, but having someone else to play it is also quite fun. So that's been my very busy week. Court, how are you doing, and what have you been doing?
I'm doing fine. Hello, lads. Not as much as yourself, Impetus. I did do a Warlock run with Saint and his lads, and I also managed to get Euphony, which I think out of the three of us, that's the first time, if I'm not mistaken. Very interesting gun. It's not talked a lot. I suppose maybe just with the nature, it being a raid exotic, it's not as flashy as something like Conditional Finality, but it's a very interesting one. I want to use it in kind of higher end content, especially on Warlock, where it's just threadlings the build. Very, very interesting exotic. Outside of Destiny, I've just been playing a lot of GTA online. Just a little bit addicted to that at the moment. As we record this on, we normally record this on Sunday. So this Sunday, I was playing. I had pretty much all day to do something because I'm covered everything else. I've not got a lot of projects in the background. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to grind a lot of GTA Online. Just take a little break from Destiny. So from one game to another, grind. And yeah, nothing much beyond that. I'm just kind of on a little bit of a wind down as I approach my vacation in a few weeks' time as well. But obviously still engaging with Destiny and all the kind of project work that I attach myself to behind the scenes. But yeah, pretty quiet for me. Saint, how are you doing?
It's been a good week for me as far as the loot goes, lads. No dead Grammary to report. That still eludes me. You know, we'll get there someday. Soon. But I did get the riposte roll after many games of comp on many different characters. Small bore, ricochet rounds, repulsor brace, destabilizing rounds, composite stock. It's a dream. It's got the PvE traits exactly what I was looking for. The stats are solid, you know, barrel and you know, mag are good enough. I am really enjoying this thing. I don't know. Yeah, it finally happened. So I'm very grateful for that. I think I'm kind of in the groove of playing comp now, which is what a strange sentence, again, to come out of, you know, in this show, but it's okay. So I think I may keep going and trying to get a PvP role. It's probably, you know, Zen Moment, Kill Clip, something like that. But yeah, really, really stoked on that. Used it a little bit, immediately enhanced the traits, and it's fitting right into some of those Prismatic and Void builds, especially with Shield Crush. Good for this season. And then if you switch over to Pure Void with something like Offensive Bulwark, you know, that Repulsor Brace destabilizing combo is just really strong. And the amount of healing that you can get from, oh my gosh, the other fragment, Controlled Demolition is just really nice. So yeah, awesome weapon for Void Titans with auto rifles in such a good spot right now. I've got, you know, a couple other weapons with this same combo on it, but yeah, this is it right here as far as Void weapons goes with this trait combo for PvE, which is funny coming from comp. But yeah, awesome weapon. Definitely feels like worth the grind on that one. Still no Euphony. Got a lot of triumph stunts. Still, I think I have like 2 static and counter triumphs, and I need to do a like all Void run or something like that. So I'm running out of boosts for my chance on the drop here, but hopefully that will drop eventually. And then, yeah, Warlock Prismatic, almost done unlocking all that stuff. And outside of Destiny, we've got a lot of new updates for D&D 2024 update on classes and enemies and rules and all that stuff. And Space Marine 2 is not far off at all. I'm incredibly excited for that. The sequel to a game that is over a decade old, and the more I see of it, the better it looks. Seeing some really good first impression early reviews come out on that, so really excited about that. Just a few weeks away, but we're not here to talk about 40K. We're here to talk about some Destiny. Court, who do we have to thank before we get into that?
Yeah, so we have a new patron. We have Paul V. Thank you very much for joining. And he joins our marvelous, wonderful PvE Grandmasters. That's Dark Wizard 85, David, Deacon, IMK Rose, Jellied Puppy, The Shazzle, The Puckster, The Mirror, and This Moment. Thank you very much for your support. Speaking of support and sending us feedback, you can send us all kinds of feedback directly to any of our socials or via the Discord server, Twitter, that is at PodVSEnemies, or on our Patreon. You can find links to all of those in the show notes. Positive, critical, and constructive feedback helps with the trajectory of the podcast and how we present you, breakdown builds, activities, and much more in the PvE sandbox for all kinds of Destiny players. We also want to extend a special thanks and appreciation to everyone that supports PvE by downloading, listening, and discussing our show, and directly supporting us via Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, if you'd like to support us, you can find on the link to Patreon found in the show notes of this episode. You'll get access to members-only channels in our Discord server, behind-the-scenes content, text write-ups of weapon breakdowns, input on the future of the show, and much, much more. Impetus, what are we talking about this week?
Just talking about the Solstice weapons, doing a breakdown of those 4 guns, and then answering some Patreon questions. And that'll be it. So yes, hopefully a shorter episode. Hopefully I'm not jinxing ourselves here. Again, 3 of these weapons have already been out before. They did get a perk refresh, excuse me. Some of them got new origin traits, but for the most part, their functions are still pretty much identical. But that's what we'll be talking about today. Of course, we got a little bit of housekeeping, some updates, and then, of course, our Patreon questions. So one of the big things that we've learned in the TWID this past week was that Xur will sometimes sell an exotic class item as a way to get those items out into players' hands a little bit easier. Did they say it was 40 of the strange coins? Was that the cost for the class item?
Pretty expensive, which is about half of your max inventory, right?
I think so. Well, just over, because I think the max is like 79 or something silly like that, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe 99. Actually, it might be 99. Yeah, you might be right. I'm not sure. But anyways, the first guaranteed exotic class item from Xur will be starting August 23rd. They say sometimes because this will be either an exotic class item that he sells or an exotic cipher, and it will be random which one of the 2 he sells. So it's a start, fellas, right? I mean, I'm trying to be nice here.
Well,
it's a start.
They mentioned that this was like a short-term resolution compared to the stuff that they're working behind the scenes, which I assume we'll probably see episode 2, just kind of reading between the lines, between the words, just of they are aware of our feedback, the community's feedback in relation to exotic armor, the exotic class armor, I should say. Yeah, it's something. I suppose I'm not buying as much things at Xur anyway. I do kind of cap out on strange coins, so it's just a case of going in and buying one. So there you go.
Yeah, I'll always go and grab some glimmer and cores and stuff like that. So it's, it's not groundbreaking, but I will say I do enjoy the Xur work. I would say, generally speaking, feels like that landed. You can get catalysts if you're coming back to the game or if you miss them, weird, random just weapons. And if you're a player that's playing all the time, there's still just some resources and stuff you can pick up each weekend.
It does say here as well that you still have to have done the Dual Destiny at least once for this for you to be actually acquire it. But beyond that, once you've got it, or once you've done Dual Destiny, you can go and buy it if it's there.
Yep, and it's a 50% chance. So I mean, that's a higher drop rate than many of the things that can drop in this game. So I'll take it for the time being here. As for our Patreon, just want to give an FYI here. We did have some breakdowns here. I believe, well, I'll let you guess who put this out here, but Buried Bloodline weapon breakdown went up in our PvE favorites section. And then for our Grandmaster tier, we did put up a build consultation form on the Patreon. That's a post that only you guys can see, and that is, again, a perk of being a Grandmaster. We're not going to spend too much time talking about that, but yes, please go ahead and fill that out if you are interested in getting one set up with us hosts. All right, and then our next section here, we're going to have some questions brought to us by the patrons that we would like to answer. We got 2 here that we're going to talk about. And this first one, again, I do apologize. I do not know how to pronounce your name. I believe it is, well, I'm just going to pronounce it the way that it looks on paper. Graniad. I hope I didn't butcher that too much. Graniad asks, do you think it's time to limit damage reduction stacking in the same way as categories of damage buff stacking? Saint, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely something that has gotten us into situations of nerfing things pretty hard as a response to DR getting way too high. And I would say I'm in favor of less complicated stacking limits. And I guess it's really not a limitation on DR at all, is there? Versus like outgoing damage stacking. There's really very little that doesn't work together for DR, is there?
Yeah, the closer you get to 100% DR, not that you could achieve that, because that's not possible, the more or the higher amount of DR you have to combine into your calculation. So like 50% DR with 50% is like, I don't have the number here, but it's like 75%. And then if you add another 50% on that, it's then truncated even more downwards on the linear scale, where it's like 82.5%. So like you have to achieve more and more to get the max.
Yeah, the diminishing returns there. I would. Yeah, so as far as like outgoing damage, I would say I would love just the additive. And for DR, if they don't want to go to additive, kind of limiting the stacking to like percentage wise, kind of like Corey's talking about, because of the way that all works, you do kind of decay linear or not linearly. It gets more and more difficult as you go higher on the scale there. Wouldn't hate to see them put in like categories for DR, because it can get kind of nutty when you stack a few things together. And that could make glaives in sword blocking feel more valuable if they're like one of the few things that can stack onto something like, whatever the arc, reduction is, or our woven mail, whatever the case may be. I'm okay with that. Court, what are you? Where's your head at on this?
I do share the same sentiment, obviously, with just the nature of damage reduction stacking. Like I mentioned, the more that you stack, the less gains you're getting, just with the nature that you're dealing with a reduction rather than with a multiplication. I don't think we should put I don't think there should be any more caps, but I do agree that there should be more of a streamlined category system, where, much like what we have with damage stacking multipliers, there's just a clear cut, okay, I can stack this, that, and this to get X amount. And I think there's just too many DR sources that are giving wild amount of different values. Like there is in the game, there is that resist times 1 up to 4, but even within that system, within the game, the values that some things that give you like times 4 resist don't share the same value. So sometimes it might be 50% DR when you're using X thing, or it might be 40%. So I think there should be more of a streamlined, a more just things should be consolidated into these categories that we already have in the game, rather than having so many sources that give you 25% and then 35%, and it's just there's a lot of kind of messy structure. So that's a lot of work behind the scenes. I'd rather that to happen than them to add more kind of damage reduction limitations. Just with the nature of the system, it has that diminishing value anyway.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because if you do not know that those are different values because you don't look at detailed spreadsheets and databases about the numerical side of this game obsessively, like some people do.
Weirdos.
If you're a new player, yeah, I mean, how are you supposed to know that? It's like the player communication on that front, to the point you just made, Court, is not great, because it is not super consistent.
There's still a lot of work to be done with the damage stacking side of things, the damage buff stacking, I should say, where we do have these like categories, and then within that category you can, within the 3 main categories, you can't stack like Lumina and Well of Radiance. You can't stack those together in terms of like applying a damage buff. You can stack them together for other effects, but for damage stacking, no. But I was looking at so I used to manage a tab or a section within my spreadsheets that just went through every single damage reduction in the game. But I stopped updating it because they kept changing a lot of these values, and it just became a hassle to keep updating. It's a little bit different to like damage stacking, where like the Radiance, it can go up to I don't think it's changed, but it's been 25%. But like Ward of Dawn, where it went from like 35% and now it's back down to 25%. Those are quite easy to test for and to manage, but like DR stacking and DR sources just became such a headache to keep on tabs, and this is during the time they were tweaking with the resilience stat, where out of nowhere we got the change where tier 10 would give you it was at 40%, and then they reduced it down to 30 or something like that. I can't remember, but it just became really a big hassle, and that was because we've just got so many different sources that provide different DR values, and we've got, even because this was last updated before Lightfall, so we've got a lot more since then. So I don't envy anyone that has to test these, because I hated it.
I've got nothing to really add on to what you guys have said. I feel the exact same way. It absolutely just needs to be consolidated, I think, is kind of our general consensus here.
Yeah.
Adam's Down Boy, shout out to your work in getting our recommendations onto Dim. Appreciate you, sir. As our second question of the episode, how would you rework the Shattered Throne dungeon if you were in charge? Court?
Spike the difficulty. That's the obvious answer for any kind of older type of content. Mechanically, I mean, we were just very casually chatting about this before we started the podcast. I think you guys mentioned that, like, mechanically the dungeon's pretty it's in a good shape in terms of mechanics. It's just the problem that the bosses have like 1 HP. You can glide through that dungeon like there's no tomorrow. I'm not really sure. Like, it's quite a basic answer for me, but I'm not sure what else they could add in terms of like mechanics, or like a new encounter, or like an encounter between the bosses. But I really enjoy Shattered Throne, but I think many episodes ago we did like a dungeon tier list, and for me Shattered Throne was just at the bottom, just of the nature of it being very old content. It's not followed the trend of Destiny. It's not current sandbox, and I'd love to see it kind of spiked up to where we are right now, because it's a very fun dungeon. It's I love the Taken aesthetic. I love the Dreaming City, like Shattered Realm aesthetic. So love to see it up there. Saint, what's your thoughts? What are you thinking? Would you add another encounter, or what else would you think would be an improvement for Shattered Throne?
If I am gonna have to go through all these traversal sections, let's just like spice that up a little bit. You know, give me some more modern Taken enemies, you know, kind of a thing to just like give something to the traversal sections.
Taken ogres everywhere.
Yeah, you know, just toss me around, really. No, I mean, if they don't want to add enemies to the traversal sections, or you know, kind of amplify the traversal sections, then I don't know, you can create some kind of like, you know, the lifts, right, that carry you around in the dungeon. Create some kind of like lift things like that will like toss the players around, because at this point we've had a lot of time trudging through the Shattered Throne in silence, and being the first dungeon ever, it was cool to have these like moments in between the encounters where you're just like wandering around kind of in awe of, you know, where am I? What's happening? I don't understand like really what's going on, but I just killed this ogre boss and now I'm not done yet, so something else is around here somewhere. And that was a great experience, but hey man, that was like 5 years ago or whatever, right? It's we've come a long way since then, and I think the expectation from dungeons is a little bit different, because that still does not super sit well with me when we're in situations like Ghost of the Deep and I'm having to traverse through the water. Is like one of the things that keeps me from running that dungeon more often as full runs, more than anything else. There's just a massive traversal sections in the dungeons. It's just not it. Yeah, so I'd be looking for a way to spice that up a little bit, add some kind of bonus objective onto the traversal sections for the end, or just expedite them and don't really worry about it. But yeah, maybe you could have bonus stuff in the traversal sections to make it a little more engaging, and I don't know. That's really what I'm looking for. Yeah, and difficulty. Make it harder. New taken enemies and stuff like that. Impetus, what are your vibes on Shattered Throne?
I genuinely believe those boss fights are really perfect, arguably perfect boss fights for a dungeon. It's just the bosses are made out of paper. Like you go through all those mechanics, especially the ogre fight being in a large, wide open arena where you deliberately have to run around basically the perimeter to get through the mechanics, all while the boss is shooting at you, in addition to the ads and then the mini bosses. Like, that is a perfect fight. And then you go to fight the ogre, and again, he's got that mechanic where he summons a bunch of those arc orbs. I can't ever remember what they call them, the tracking orbs, but like a swarm of them are coming towards you.
The darts?
Yeah, the darts. Yeah. Problem is, by the time those darts even get to your player, if you've got a rocket launcher on, he's probably dead, or 75% of his health is gone. And it just feels like I went through all of this to knock you over with my heavy weapon. I mean, you don't even need a super. And then same thing with the final boss fight. It is great. It's so tiny. I love that you have all of those giant knights and the scions plus the boss with the immunity shield in there. And it can be pretty stressful. It can be a little claustrophobic. But again, once the knights are down and you actually have the damage buff to deal damage to the final boss, she's gone immediately in about 7 seconds. It's just not... Yeah, I want the health to go up. I think everything else, if the health goes back up to what it was, closer to when it debuted, which granted I wasn't playing, but I've seen footage of that, and you actually did have to do multiple phases of damage for the bosses, I think that dungeon would go up in my estimation. The loot just got refreshed too, so there's a reason to at least get some of the Dreaming City weapons. They do have some pretty decent rolls, but yeah, oh man, it's so close to being a top tier dungeon. But I think a big part of that just comes down to the boss HP. Yeah,
if they could have a scenario where, running we haven't done enhanceable dungeon weapons, right?
Yeah, we have prophecy.
I don't think.
we
have prophecy.
Just prophecy.
And you can get, you could get some stuff like this from Shattered Throne. Are those weapons enhanceable? I think so. I'm not exactly sure.
Let me go check my vault and see if I held on to a.
Yeah, because I know I have a scout rifle that I saved from this previous season, and my thought there was just, okay, well, maybe if you didn't grab those weapons during that season, like a vouchsafe or whatever it may be, maybe allow those weapons to be enhanceable now. And if you do extra objectives during the traversal sections, or if you beat the dungeon on a harder difficulty, you could be doing multiple traits dropping on an enhanceable weapon.
Right.
There's could be something there for sure.
Oh, I don't have a single Dreaming City weapon. I cannot answer that question.
Yeah, so I think that the weapons are fine, and they could even just do some multi-trade options and put, like, I don't know, maybe one more Dreaming City, or just make sure that all the Dreaming City weapons can drop from the various encounters or something like that. And it could be interesting, but I don't know. There's some other activities that they could also be refreshing with
exactly
weapons from the raid dungeon.
That's where I'm at right now. I think Shattered Throne is fine, even with the weak bosses, but man, come on. Grasp of Avarice, bit of heresy, please. Hello? Anyone?
Yeah, man. That would surely be something. And a bunch of enhanced matadors running around out there in the Crucible. I'm certain you would see that. There's plenty of good weapons from those dungeons, though. So maybe just tune it up a little bit, crank that boss HP up, and you'd be fine. And then hopefully we see some more dungeons get enhanceable weapons loot refreshes over the next couple of episodes.
All right, let's move on to our weapon breakdown. We are talking about the Solstice weapons, and there are 4 of them this year. Getting refreshed perk pools would be Something New, Compass Rose, and Crowning Duologue. Again, we're just comparing it to last year's, or rather 2023's version of those guns. And then we'll be breaking down for the first time Fortunate Star. Now, these 4 weapons do have a Solstice-related origin trait. Some of them also have another one as well. But the Solstice origin trait is Dream Work. Once per reload, ally kills on previously hit by this weapon, or kills on targets damaged by allies grant the following benefits. We're going to first start with the non-bow weapons here. Loads 66% of the magazine capacity, rounded up, into the weapon from your reserves, and it grants a little bit of reload speed. For the bow receives decreased draw time. Pretty good origin trait. I think when it first debuted, I'm trying to remember, there was some fun stuff that was going on. I remember seeing it was Keitel kills. People were stacking up a ton of, because it could overflow. That's what it was. It could overflow some of your other weapons. So I remember people were getting a ton of kills with something new, overflowing their rocket launchers and then melting Keitel a few years ago. Of course, that is no longer how it works. It did get tuned pretty massively to avoid any overflow shenanigans. But yeah, I think in this capacity still it's fine. We'll have a little bit more to say about it, I think, for some of the weapons compared to others. But let's talk about that bow, Fortunate Star. I'll kick things off here. Our new bow is a Void lightweight. Gets that intrinsic passive of plus 20 mobility and a 6.25% forward movement speed bonus. This does come with an additional origin trait, Feist Stinger, so hits have a chance to activate it for 7 seconds, and it does grant the following. Refills your magazine, decreases your ADS movement speed penalty by 10%, and on bows, you get a 15% decreased draw time. So you're looking at decreased draw time from either of the 2 origin traits for Fortunate Star. Now, Vice Stinger does have a 4-second cooldown between each activation, and the activation chance, which is based on hits, is 10% for bows. I think there's a case for both of them. Vice Stinger, of course, has been a very popular origin trait, but I think the way I would probably look at it is if I'm playing the solo with Fortunate Star, I go Vice Stinger, but if I am playing in a team environment, I probably go Dream Work is kind of how I would look at that. Decreased draw time is a wonderful bonus for a bow-related origin trait, so I think that's certainly worth it. And the refill is nice, but again, refilling the magazine on a bow is, you don't really think about it because it happens so fast. It's probably the only weapon in the game where we don't need to worry about reload speed too much. But let's talk about those stats. We are going to be comparing this to the last Void lightweight bow. Came out actually in the final Season of the Wish, and that was Lethophobia. That is craftable. And then we're going to also compare it to Tyranny of Heaven from Last Wish. That is our kind of in-game lightweight solar bow. Starting with our accuracy stat here, it's going to go Fortunate Star, Lethophobia, Tyranny of Heaven. We are looking at 34 versus 23 versus 36. Lethophobia massively suffered on the accuracy side. On the stability side here, 59 versus 56 versus 59. Handling, we had a 65 versus 62 versus 68. So specifically for Fortunate Star, that translates to a 0.55 second ready speed, a 0.41 second ADS speed, and a 0.42 second stow speed. And the reload is 60 on all 3, which translates to 0.68 seconds, which is very fast. Again, we don't really need to think about it. So just looking at the stats, not even getting into the perks here, Fortunate Star definitely coming out on top over Lethophobia. Again, very close to, if not equal to, Tyranny of Heaven in quite a few stats. So pretty much a straight upgrade over Lethophobia. However, Lethophobia is craftable, so you do have a pretty clear path to overcoming like that low accuracy speed. Whereas with Fortunate Star, you can enhance the traits, but you are at the mercy of RNG. Now, what is there on Fortunate Star here? Again, bows, kind of like swords, have long had those first 2 columns pretty much set in stone as far as what do we want to go for here. Column 1 are bowstrings. Elastic string is giving you that minus 72 to the draw time. And again, we want to get that draw time as low as possible here. It does come with a -10 to accuracy, and again, lightweights do typically come with lower accuracy. And while that was probably a death sentence on Lethophobia, here our accuracy does get tanked by 10 down to 24, which is still serviceable, still fine. Although if you do find that the accuracy is so low that you need that malice adjusted, we have some options in column 2, which is our arrows. Again, a lot of people would probably go with something like compact arrow shaft in column 2 with a +10 to the reload speed and a +10 to handling. That takes you up to an 80 handling, making the bow nice and snappy, and that reload speed all the way up to 70. Again, if the accuracy penalty is too high though, there is something like straight fletching, which just provides a +10 to your accuracy, which completely removes the malice of elastic string, and you're looking at still a small bump from elastic string to your handling. So you're sitting at 70 handling and 540 draw time. So you got choices there, but again, there's not really a reason to run any other string. As for the arrows, I mean, I guess you could take a bunch of other options since we don't get to craft this and take our pick here. Like, there's a few other things that can help. I would say like helical fletching would be fine, but not ideal. But yeah, for the most part, compact arrow shaft, straight fletching, kind of the two top picks here. Moving into column 3 and 4 though, we have pretty much everything you'd ever want on a bow, minus explosive head. Explosive head does not appear on Fortunate Star. It does appear on Lethophobia. However, Fortunate Star does have quite a few solid options to make up for that. So it does get Repulsor Brace, does get Disruption Break. Those two perks were on Lethophobia. But in addition, let's just start in column 3. We get Archer's Tempo, did not appear on Lethophobia. Enlightened Action, Hipfire Grip, Successful Warm-Up. Excellent options here. And I'll talk about kind of how we can go through that column in a little bit. But column 4, we have, again, Disruption Break, but also Destabilizing Rounds on a Void Bow here. Very nice, very solid option. Golden Tricorn as well, and then Precision Instrument and our new, well, not new, our returning trait, Archer's Gambit, all in column 4 here. So really a solid perk pool. Again, I do think this is a straight upgrade to Lethophobia if you can get the right roll and enhance it. Obviously, we have our Void 3.0 combo of Repulsor Brace and Destabilizing Rounds. Very unique combo here for our Void bows. Probably the role everyone's going for PvE. Saint, I know that you just got that on your comp auto rifle chase here. Is that something that you're going for on Fortunate Star?
And normally I would never give up Archer's Tempo in column 3. But in this case, Dreamwork and its activation giving you that decreased draw time without having to elect for actually using Archer's Tempo in column 3 is definitely really appealing, and why that's like the one, this is like the one case in which I'm actually willing to give that up and go Repulsor Brace and Destabilizing Rounds. Now, this is a lightweight, not a precision, so the damage is fine, maybe not quite as good as a precision, but it's definitely okay. I think that it loses that one-shot capability a little faster than some of our, some of the precision options, depending on what content you're in and things like that. Destabilizing Rounds feeling better than ever though, and this is kind of competing with your more ranged options on that, right? So this bow's gonna have a massive amount of range, so if I'm thinking my destabilizing options that would be really competing with this, it's going to be Vouchsafe and Elsie's Rifle and that kind of a thing. So I definitely think that there's something there to be said for that. Some people are just not very fond of bows in general, but yeah, I think between something like Elastic String, bringing that draw time down, and then also Dreamwork, I definitely think that there is something there. The only other fourth column traits I'm really, taking a significant amount of notice on, maybe like Disruption Break or Golden Tricorn. I maybe Successful Warm-Up. Also, I would say with Destabilizing Rounds, if getting that Overshield is not really, not really a concern, or you're just not really invested in that. Successful Warm-Up is always solid. It gives that 37.5 draw time decrease, which is really solid. Yeah, and then, kind of like you said, even if you're in solo content, you got Vice Singer helping you out, which is like 15% on the draw time or something like that. It's like half. I'm going to say it's half of, successful warm up. And getting rolls of this thing is not going to be hard. Playing this game at all, it's going to just dump them. Court, how you feeling? You got some long range destabilizing rounds options, repulsor brace options. How's the vault looking? How you feeling about this thing?
That's probably what I'd be going for. And I was just looking at just void bows in general, not counting levies or Le Monarch. And we don't have a lot. The last void bow, just across both lightweight and precision, we don't have a lot of options here. Yeah, we recently got Lethophobia. But beyond that, we've got Under Your Skin, which was season 16, way back. I mean, I still think 16 was fairly recently, but no, that was 2.5 years ago. And then before that, Imperial Needle. So like, we don't have a lot of selections. So yeah, this would be, if you're a bow person, you want to use your sort of Void 3.0 synergy, Repulsor Brace, D-Stab. For my fellow hunters, Lethophobia is probably still going to be your better option if you have that crafted already, if you're not that interested in getting Fortunate Star. It doesn't have D-Stab in column 4, but the reason why I'm specifically saying Void Hunters is obviously Falcon gives you that volatile rounds action. So you can pair that with Repulsor Brace in column 3 and then probably Golden Tricorn. But yeah, that's for Lethophobia. But this has also got Golden Tricorn. You can enhance this, so you can really play into those strengths. But beyond that, really it's Repulsor Brace, D-Stab.
Good looking gun.
It's a,
bow.
Yeah,
sorry, not a gun.
All right. I will take over for our next one, which is something new. And this is quite established. We haven't... we've seen this twice now, last 2 years for Solstice.
Yes. Yep.
It's been around for a bit.
Yeah. So this is our Stasis Aggressive Hand Cannon. That's 120 RPM. There's no frame attribute or bonus. The aggressives just are. We do have our other origin trait here, which is actually something that is new for something new, and that is Nadir Focus. There probably won't play into the strengths here, at least in PvE. So a sustained fire increases accuracy and range, grants stacks of Nadir Focus for 2 seconds, up to 5 stacks, and at 5 stacks you get plus 10 range and 7.5% decreased accuracy cone size. Again, that's the origin trait's more for PvP than it is for PvP. PvE, I'm mixing up the acronyms here. In terms of refresh and change perks, we had quite a lot happen with something new, and another one of these weapons that seldom gets a column 2 change perk selection. So it swapped from the quote rounds, so that's your like armor piercing, high cal, etc., and it's been set to the magazine, so that's your accuracy, you've extended mag, tac mag, and steady rounds, that kind of set. Column 3, they removed triple tap, discord, pugilist, and wellspring, which has been moved to column 4. In column 3, they added in column 3 to the pain, snapshot sights, elemental capacitor, and demo, which was actually moved from column 4. In column 4, they removed Harmony, Encore, Golden Tricorn, and, like I mentioned, Demo, which has been moved to column 3. And they added, in their place, Explosive Payload, Precision Instrument, Vorpal Weapon, and Wellspring, which, again, moved from column 3. So we're going to pair this with Crimble's Dagger, which is from Iron Banner, and Igneous Hammer, which is Trials, so your 2 PvP options. Over in the range, we've got, comparing it with... so something new versus Crimble's versus Igneous. We've got 58 to 60 versus 65, and that represents a 34.8 meter aim down sight range. Stability of 30 versus 31 versus 35. So, we're seeing a trend here already. Igneous Hammer is the stat monster that it is. Over in the handling, we've got 30 versus 31 versus 37, so that equals a 0.39 second ready, a 0.28 second ADS, and a 0.42 second stow. And on the reload, that's 25 versus 24 versus 30, and that is a 3.04 second reload. Quite a long reload. This being an aggressive, that's your kind of your low stat when it comes to hand cannons. And yeah, I know who put this in the host comments in our script here, but she's no stat monster, unfortunately. That still goes to Igneous Hammer for obvious reasons. That is the very much go-to aggressive frame. But this is our Stasis aggressive frame hand cannon, so it's got some kind of some freedom in the top slot. Of course, looking at columns 1 and 2 as usual, don't need to focus anything related to range. It's already got a nice health 8, so probably going to be looking at something like reload or handling. Depending, in fact, saying, how have you fired something new, or I suppose any aggressive hand cannon on console? How does it feel on controller?
Oh yeah. I'm using plenty. I get spoiled because of the weapons that I'm used to firing when it comes to aggressive frame hand cannons. I often use a steady hand that has 70 stability, and that is not a super fair stat comparison to make to most other weapons of the type. Luckily, this thing has some traits that can help it get up to, maybe not quite there, but very, very strong stability stat. And yeah, I mean, just because of their RPM, because of the nature of their weapons, I would say as long as you're not just trying to spam the thing ridiculously, you just don't hold down the trigger constantly, it's not that bad to land shots. If, you got a little bit in stability, I would say. I'm playing on controller. I do find that the base stability of 30 is not stellar, I wouldn't say.
For the mouse and keyboard users, of course, stability is not really a factor, just with the more dynamic approach when it comes to recoil control. So focusing more on kind of handling. Handling's really low there, so we can obviously equip Arrowhead Brake. We do have some other options. Fluted Barrel there, if you're wanting a little bit of both stability and handling. You get +5 and +15, respectively. In column 2, though, with this is such a weird choice that when they do swap from the sort of, quote, rounds set to the magazine set, because we do lose armor piercing and high cal, which would be my kind of go-to with the nature of aggressive frames hitting quite hard. It makes kind of sense to me anyway, against your kind of lower targets, to equip armor piercing and high cal, but we don't have those, which is we no longer have those in this version. So if you've still got a previous year, then certainly keep them, because they're quite a unique role now. But yeah, I think again probably focusing on reload base perks here. So you do have alloy mag, and we also have flared magazine. I mean, the magazine is 8, and if you want to pair something like Tac Mag, you do get a +1. Extended Mag's going to completely dumpster your reload down to 5, but you do get some extra bullets in the mag, but I think it's just much better to focus on something like Flared Mag will. For columns 3 and 4, again, looking at this for PvE builds. Now, I'm immediately drawn towards Demo and Headstone, as I've mentioned many times before, because I always notice those two perks, and it's a nice little synergy when you are running your Stasis or any other class, but I think this has got more synergy when it comes to Stasis. You do have Rapid Hit, which will really pump up your reload speed. Let's see, if I put on something like Flared Magma, then yeah, ×5 rapid hit, you're already at 100 reloads, and it also brings your reload time to 1.7 seconds. That's a 44% reduction, almost half. Plus you also get that stability bonus with rapid hit, that +25 at max, +60 reload, and a 0.93x reload duration multiplier. Then you've got Frenzy. I know that's quite a appetizing perk for a lot of folks, and it will be even more so on a hand cannon that fire quite slow. It reloads quite slow. So you can take off Rapid Hit, maybe put back on Demo, and you've already got your plus 100 handling, plus 100 reload speed just with Frenzy being active. I don't value Vorpal Weapon much on primary weapons. Just not... I mean, it's 20%, but I'm not going to be using this against champions. Maybe if there was, say, like anti-barrier hand cannon, I would maybe think about using Vorpal Weapon, but there's much better kind of options in column 4. Explosive payloads in there, which is a new perk for something new. But yeah, for me, either a combination of Demo, Headstone, or Demo, Frenzy. Now, these weapons do roll with double perks if you are doing the sort of mini quests to complete all of the sort of side quests. So they can drop with multi perks, and you can obviously enhance all of these. So my dream perk selection would be Demo with Headstone and Frenzy. But beyond that, I think pretty interesting hand cannon. Saint, what are you looking for? What have you got any kind of build that you want to use something new on?
Yeah, Demo plus a Frenzy, a explosive payload, a Headstone. Frenzy and explosive payload are great for, Frenzy just kind of really compensating for a lot of the weaknesses there, and handling and reload speed is great. And then Demo for just the utility. I've also used Subsistence on a couple of my aggressive frame hand cannons because they have the ability in at least content up until few points of a deficit to just one shot a lot of minor enemies, a low level stuff. So having something like a Subsistence and Headstone, or Subsistence and explosive payload just for taking out trash mobs and things like that is not bad at all. In fact, Subsistence Headstone is kind of close to the role that I would use on the Niamuna aggressive hand cannon round robin, right? Subsistence Hatchling is something I would use on there for a long time, because a Hatchling would contribute towards the refill, and enhanced Subsistence is like 20%, which in this case, probably if you're using like Tac Mag, is going to be 2 bullets, or maybe if you have to get 10 in the magazine, so you'd have to use like Appended for Subsistence to get 2 bullets back. But it's kind of fun to use something like Subsistence and Headstone, and you shatter the crystal, and a couple of things die, and you get 2 bullets back, or 4 bullets back in the magazine, or whatever the case may be. It can be kind of goofy. So that's probably the only other way I would take that. Aggressive hand cannons aren't huge in PvE, but if you're looking for something to easily land headshots with, and you like Headstone, you're investing in some kind of shatter and stuff like that, then sure, I mean, pretty decent option here. Impetus, where you at?
Man, I don't know. Oh gosh, Demo Headstone looks great. Again, aggressive frames are just not at the top of the hand cannon subfamilies when we're talking about minor DPS. It's very much 180s and the heavy bursts, and unfortunately we have a heavy burst and a 180 in the Stasis family. The heavy burst is in particular new. It's craftable. It gets rapid hit and Headstone. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm landing. Of course, we have Vulpecula all the way back in Season of the Lost. That's our 180. That got Shoot to Loot explosive payload, as well as Shoot to Loot Headstone. Yeah, I've held on to one of those, and I've loved using it. I think it's aged wonderfully. And then, of course, our Heavy Burst, which, gosh, what is the name of that one? That one is
Bold
Endings.
Bold Endings.
Yeah, absolutely. Good recall. Yeah, what do I have on mine? I need to check. Oh, I went with Desperate Measures, but yeah. Again, both of those I think are kind of cleaning up, and then there's also plenty of fantastic stasis adaptives as well. Ios Luna, of course, had been kind of the big one I'm trying to remember if we've gotten a more recent stasis adaptive since then. I cannot recall, but my overall point is there's not a lot on something new that really gets me going on PvE. I can certainly see some good PvE perks, and if you don't have any of those other hand cannons, definitely try and grind one out. But also, this is only around for one more week. I think hopefully you've already gotten your roll, or you're still going for the roll at this point. If you're waiting to make up your mind, I think just go for bold endings, craft that, have a good time. Banshee might sell Vulpecula, or Zur might sell Vulpecula. If it gets you to loot and you get Headstone or Explosive Payload, grab that. It's going to be a great utility roll. It's already a great archetype for hand cannon. But something new, if you miss the roll, don't lose sleep over it. You can get other good stasis hand cannons out there.
Yeah, if you really don't like aggressive burst for some reason, and you don't have a Vulpecula, then I think this is why, that would be the target market for this, is you just don't like aggressive bursts for some reason and aren't interested in that. And then I could definitely get the idea of trying to get something new with a nice Headstone stasis roll for some shatters if you're looking to build some synergy there. And
Judgment.
Who knows?
I forgot Judgment. That's our other adaptive one, and that's also enhanceable. Granted, the stat package is not ideal. I hope you like the number 40 because it gets repeated a lot on Judgment. But that could get Headstone in column 3, and then Time Payload or Adrenaline Junkie or Vorpal Weapon in column 4. Plus crossing over that origin trait is wonderful. It's one of the better origin traits. So, and I think, doesn't that drop from the first encounter, or is that the final encounter of the Prophecy Dungeon?
I want to say it's the final encounter now
Okay.
after they redid the loot refresh. And I never got my Enlightened Action Time Payload roll of that weapon, so I just try to take that memory and just push it way down.
Sorry about
just
that.
what I didn't
Anyways,
think about.
I mean,
No,
it's a lot on something new to go for, really. Yeah, but the point is that there's definitely other stasis hand cannons that are not on a 3-week cycle once in the year, and I probably would point you towards those, again, for PvE. I think the people chasing something new for PvP definitely have a reason to go for it, but we're not going to talk about that. So those are my thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, hey, maybe you grab one and we get some more stasis stuff going in our next episode, and
Right.
Headstone becomes like a go-to trait for that episode or something, and this thing could be fun. And I will say this too, I feel that this is one of the weapons that benefits heavily from the reload on Dreamwork, right? Because the reload, unless you're using Frenzy or Rapid Hit or Subsistence, whatever it is, because if you opt for Demo, Demo is awesome, but if you don't have that grenade up and to get the reload, that reload's like 3 seconds or something like that. I'm pretty sure it's not good, So Dreamwork can definitely feel like you're getting a lot of benefit out of it if it activates at the right time on this thing.
And the thing is, I do like aggressive frames, but I don't see them really buffing them, because it would mean Igneous would start to be completely out of band with it just being Igneous Hammer. But yeah, I do understand the sentiment, and to be honest, if we never got heavy burst hand cannons, I'd maybe be a little bit more friendly to something new. Because as Impetus pointed out, it does get Headstone and Demo. It's the perks are reversed, so Demo's in the 4th column, but Headstone's in the 3rd. But it still gets it. I have used Igneous Hammer in obviously PvP, but also PvE, because it is a very fun weapon. And once you get that frenzy going, it becomes a tearaway, like an aggressive frame with frenzy. It's what is this? It's got the attributes of a 180, but it's got obviously the 120 damage. But there are just a lot of other options here. Yeah, I'm looking at Judgment. I'm looking at bold endings, and it's not quite there, but probably won't get the frame probably won't get a buff anytime soon. At least that's my vibes.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about something that is getting a buff sometime soon, and that's shotguns. Next up, we have Compass Rose. This is a solar precision frame shotgun, so 65 RPM. As a precision frame, it's got that decrease to horizontal recoil by about 20%. Not hugely impactful in just using the shotgun in general. The spread pattern on precisions is highly preferred in PvP these days, so it definitely makes it stand out there a little bit more. And on the origin traits, once again, we've got Dream Work and Nadir Focus. At 5 sacks, you get 10 range and 7.5% decrease accuracy. Cone size, I don't know how much you're spamming. Nadir Focus with the range sounds awesome in something like a weapon like a shotgun in PvP, especially that you'd be looking to crank the range on. But you're not going to be spamming a lot of shots from it like you would maybe with some other weapons. So I definitely think Dreamwork is the play here if you don't want to go for some kind of reload trait or something like that. But let's talk about what we've gotten added to and what we've lost in the columns here. In column 3, we lost Lead from Gold, Quick Draw, Shot Swap, Genesis, Under Over, and Surplus. And we gained Dual Loader, To the Pain, Slick Draw, Slide Shot, Threat Detector, and Threat Remover. Interesting to see Under Over gone. I don't know if this ever saw a time in the sun for a anti-barrier shotgun season, but there was a chance, there was some potential there. Definitely Shot Swap being traded out for Slick Draw, solid, and Quick Draw, as well, kind of both being merged into Slick Draw there rather than Shot Swap or Quick Draw. Dual Loader, Threat Detector, Threat Remover, all solid, especially Threat Detector and Dual Loader, looking from the PvE standpoint. A little sad to see Lead from Gold go, but that's all right. And moving over into column 4, we lost Adagio, Envious Assassin, and Cascade Point, and we gained Barrel Constrictor, 1-2 Punch, and Opening Shot. So I definitely think this has gotten a boost definitively on the PvP side of the sandbox, getting Slick Draw, Opening Shot, right? Really strong combo there. A Threat Detector, really strong there. And as far as PvE goes, Adagio, I don't think was ever huge. It did it way up your total damage. Cascade Point, obviously an interesting one, as well as Envious Assassin, but I don't think Envious was getting used very much at all. 1-2 Punch, absolutely classic. That now also joins Trench Barrel, which is in that final column. I'm trying to look at this from the standpoint of what it's going to look like in a few weeks, but let's talk about some stats real quick before we talk about some perk picks. If we are going to compare this with some very some popular options in slot for the precision frame shotguns, we've got Someday from the Pale Heart. Funny enough, we were just comparing to another one from that set, our previous weapon, and then also Matador from Grasp of Avarice Dungeon. On the range side, we have got 68 versus 62 and 65. So, about 5.6 meters. All pretty close there. Stability, 41 versus 46 and 48. Again, fine, a little low with Compass Rose being at 41, and then handling 35 versus 40 and 43. So it's going to be about 0.42 on the, ready, 0.5 on the stow, and then 0.37 on ADS. And then reload is 48 versus 51 and 48. So, not great stats. Honestly, the low handling is like what jumps out to me the most there. Reload is kind of fine being tied. Range, a couple points isn't going to be massive. So it's okay. There's some ways that we could pump some of these stats up though. And the first thing that I'm going to be looking at there is probably just probably corkscrew, I would say, from just getting a nice bump to range and handling there. You could go a little more investment on Barrel Shroud for +10 handling. Not interested in the spread increase from Smoothbore, and I'm also not super keen on the +10 range from Rifle Barrel because it's also giving me a -15 handling. Maybe Rifle Barrel is fine if you're using something like Slick Draw, because then it just doesn't matter, because Slick Draw is going to grant you 100 handling, so you easily overcompensate for something like that. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking, barrel, shroud, corkscrew, maybe even small bore there. On the mag side, you've got a few different options to pump up your mag size from tac mag and appended mag, extended mag. I think tac mag and appended are fine depending on the build that you're going to be going with. You get some reload maybe from your main traits. Assault mag is always a great choice. RPM equals DPS, and that +5 to the RPM is awesome. +15 to the stability is nice kind of combo to that. Maybe, you're just able to hold target while you're spamming shots a little bit more. Now, trying to think from the mindset of a little ways off here, when we've got some buffs to these weapons in PvE. I'm looking at these main traits here, and I'm thinking, maybe something like a threat detector or a slide shot. And then if I'm going, kind of classic mindset, I'm going 1-2 punch on my Titan. And then maybe in the new world of shotguns, maybe Incandescent is on the table, or maybe Barrel Constrictor is on the table. Court, where are you at? Am I a little overly optimistic about using Incandescent on a shotgun, or do you think that maybe there's something there? Are you ever going to use Barrel Constrictor?
Probably not. I mean, it did receive that buff, but I'm still not convinced of the perk itself in either sandbox. So yeah, Incandescent's definitely the one that I'd be interested in. I am a little bit bummed that the Lead from Gold was removed, because I always think like Lead from Gold's such a solid perk on any weapon, but especially a close quarter weapons, because it's more likely you're going to pick up ammo just with the nature of being close to an enemy. Obviously, a lot of weapons can run, things that can pick up ammo from kind of longer ranges. But yeah, a little bit bummed. And I think this, we're talking like previous year, this used to run field prep, because I was looking at the ammo capacity on Moss's sheet, which it's not up to date, at least for shotguns, but yeah, it used to get field prep, which very interesting perk for like a special. Just getting more reserves is always great. But yeah, Incandescent's probably the one that I'm going to be focusing on Compass Rose. And I was looking at, like, we've got a lot of selection for Grave Robber plus Trench Barrel. Grave Robber, also another perk that got buffed up, where your powered melee kills also refill the magazine from reserves. So that's a nice little synergy with Trench Barrel. But there's tons of shotguns that have got that, and the Icolos shotgun, which is our kind of go-to, it's a rapid fire, not a precision, has that as well. So it's not something that I'd be kind of not one that I'd be focusing on. But yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about Compass Rose. Impetus, you got any kind of thoughts for PvE?
Not really. I have an Icolos shotgun, and I have a Did Grammary with chain reaction, so I'm pretty much set, It
must be nice, okay? All right, we get it.
But also, I mean, I'm very curious to see how these shotgun changes affect exotics, because I'm looking at Lord of Wolves, and it's got a range stat of 20, and I'm wondering if that thing gets pushed out. That has had a lot of PvE utility in the past. So if that gets buffed, then I guess it really doesn't matter if we get a God Roll Compass Rose or not, because I think we'll all probably go down that route anyways.
I think with Dreamwork activating, so it loads 66 of your magazine capacity, which is rounded up. I think with it being 66%, that would be 3.3, I think. So that gets rounded up to 4. So you're almost got a full magazine getting reloaded into just with activating Dreamwork. So it's another. I mean, all of these weapons are pretty good with Dreamwork, but for specifically a special weapon where you're in the thick of the action, you're going to be actually getting assists, and assisted final blows, it'd be nice to get that refresh to your magazine just for free. Well, not for free, from your reserves, but a free action.
That's a good point. Yeah. Compass Rose, very pretty shotgun. Love the look of it. Love the little stars and the general color scheme. But yeah, I'm good on my shotguns, and I'd probably tell most other people there's a lot of good solar shotguns out there. Again, don't beat yourself up if you don't get a good Compass Rose.
I think the one thing I would have liked to see in this, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is Discord in the third column in place of Lead from Gold as like an ammo generating perk would have been cool.
Something new got Discord, but it kind of would have preferred Compass Rose to get Discord instead.
Yeah.
It's funny.
exactly.
Dead Grammary also gets Discord as well.
Okay.
Oh, word?
Okay.
God gives his silliest guns to his greatest soldiers is what we can take away. All right.
One left.
Let's round this out. I'm apparently the one that gets to talk about precision rocket launchers, so this is going to go well. We've got Crowning Duologue. This was last year's new weapon, so it's returning just for the first time. And this does get Hake Breach armaments as its additional origin trait, so it deals increased damage to vehicles and constructs. It's a 15% to vehicles, tanks, ships, shriekers, and cyclops, and 30% in increased damage to turrets, sentries, and then what we call emplacements, which are barricades and crystals, etc. This also did get a refresh perk pool, so losing Column 3 lost Field Prep, Pugilist, and Shot Swap, and gained Air Trigger, Hatchling, which originally debuted in Column 4 and then jumped a column, and Grave Robber, which has caught quite a few people's attention. Column 4 lost Adrenaline Junkie, One for All, technically Hatchling because that moved to Column 3, and Swashbuckler, and then gained Deconstruct, Bait and Switch, Bipod, and Reverberation. Pretty big shakeup here. Again, Column 3 Hatchling, also Grave Robber. I think this is the first time we've got Grave Robber on a rocket launcher. Definitely been a new thing here. Got folks interested in trying it out. Let's compare some of these stats. So we are, again, looking at our recent options, but also some of the more iconic precision frame rocket launchers with that tracking. They have the lowest damage profile, bear in mind, but again, we'll cover it here looking at Faithkeeper, which is the craftable Echoes Void precision frame rocket launcher, and then Palmyra B, which is a world drop, but also craftable, and I think there's a quest for it if I can cast my memory all the way back, and you go to the Enclave on Mars to pick that up. That was Stasis and also had Hake Breach armaments. All three of these rocket launchers have a blast radius of 30. The velocity here is 51 versus 52 versus 49. Handling is 40 versus 41 versus 43. It's pretty close there. And that translates to, for Crowning Duologue, a 0.5 second ready speed, a 0.44 ADS speed, and a 0.41 stow speed. Handling here, reload here, 29 for Crowning Duologue, which is tied for the highest, along with, I think, two other precision frame rocket launchers, versus 23 versus 22. So it's a pretty high mark there on the reload. That does translate to a blisteringly fast 3.45 seconds of reload. On the reserve side, Crowning Duologue still continues being pretty solid here. If we're looking at this with 1, 2, and 3 reserve mods, in addition to base. So we'll start with base here. We got 10 in reserves, and then with the mods added on, stacking 11, 12, 13. Crowning Duologue does have a very high inventory stat. It's 45, which is compared to most other rockets. Palmyra B also has a pretty high stat and has the same reserves, but Faithkeeper does not and can only get 12 at the max of 3 reserve mods. Palmyra B does not get Field Prep or Air Trigger, whereas Faithkeeper and Crowning Duologue do. So you've got that to keep in mind here. Air Trigger on Crowning Duologue. So again, if we're looking at base plus 1, 2, 3 reserve mods here, because Air Trigger does increase reserves, those numbers are 12, 13, 13, and 13. So effectively, you only need one reserve mod to hit the cap if you have an air trigger roll of Crowning Duologue. And Faithkeeper needs enhanced field prep to get to those values. So you've got some options here. Again, it's kind of a weird perk pool, but important to note here. I think if we look at our first two columns, those are probably going to be the easier ones. Again, it all comes down to, are you team blast radius, team velocity? There isn't really one standout stat. Again, the whole point of a precision frame is the auto-tracking missile. That is the huge benefit there. So you can really pick one of those stats to really focus on, because there isn't one that's terrible, but there also isn't one that's great. If you want to go with velocity, quick launch makes the most amount of sense, and then high velocity rounds in column 2. If you want to lean more blast radius, again, because all the stats are kind of in the middle there, it's 30s, 40s, and 50s. You could go volatile launch. That's a plus 15 to your blast radius, and then a minus 5 to velocity and handling, which doesn't, that's not terrible. It's still very usable here. And then I would probably do something like, let's see here. I guess it would be black powder. That's a minus 10 to your stability. You don't really need stability on a rocket launcher, so that's probably your best option there. That's a plus 5 to blast radius from black powder. That and volatile launch takes you up to 50 in your blast radius without massively hurting any of the other essential stats. So your choice there. I'm team velocity, so for me it would be quick launch, but instead of high velocity rounds, I would prefer impact casing for the little bit of extra impact damage there, but I'd be perfectly happy with high velocity rounds as well. Then we get into column 3 and 4, and this is kind of where things get difficult. So we've already talked about what air trigger does. Again, really the main benefit of that is the increased ammo reserves. That is passive. You do not need to be airborne for that. That is just always on in the background here. The actual other parts of air trigger, whether or not you're going to be consistently using that on a rocket launcher, is entirely up to your playstyle. I'm not going to be jumping around a whole lot if I were to be using an air trigger roll of that. And I'm also not really interested too much in air trigger, but for the passive ammo reserves on a weapon that already has a naturally high reload speed and a naturally high inventory stat, it's worth pointing out. Auto-loading holster is here, reconstruction is here, and then Grave Robber, which is our unique perk here. I don't think I need to sell you on auto-loading holster and reconstruction on a rocket launcher. Those have been kind of the two perks that really define the more meta rocket launchers, aside from their frames, from the non-meta rocket launchers. Grave Robber, though. Why would we use Grave Robber on a rocket launcher? Melee final blows are dealing damage with a charged melee. Reload the weapon from reserves. So dealing damage with a charged melee is probably where this would show up a lot. Otherwise, the melee final blows, you'd probably want a ranged melee to make sure that you are not standing next to an enemy and then blowing yourself up with that newly reloaded rocket launcher. For me, though, again, outside of kind of the silliness of it, there is that 3-second cooldown between Grave Robber activations, and that to me takes all the wind out of using this in a damage rotation, as getting a charged melee damage can be quite easy. Again, you'd probably want to use a melee that has multiple charges to really take advantage of that. But the 3-second cooldown, yeah, I'm not interested. I'd rather just go with a reconstruction roll or an auto-loading holster and then swap to some special weapons while I'm waiting on those two perks to take effect, and then swap back and fire the rocket. So Grave Robber isn't there for me. I'll make sure to ask Court and Saint, though, what they're feeling. Column 4, Bait and Switch and Bipod are kind of the two pretty obvious ones. Again, don't think we need to sell you on those. They're known quantities. They are definitely the meta rocket launcher perks. What I am curious to know from Court and Saint, in addition to your thoughts on Grave Robber, Reverberation. We've seen some testing, actually, that was just done this last week on kind of the effect of it. It seems that it is basically explosive light, but you need to get a kill to proc that 100 blast radius for 5 seconds. 5.5 seconds. How are we feeling on Reverberation? Does this need a rework for you guys to consider it? Do you already see a use case? Are you trying to use it on explosive weapons like grenade launchers and rocket launchers?
I like the idea of Reverberation. The trigger is just too much. The juice is not worth the squeeze here. Mm-hmm. The trigger is too big of an ask on a weapon like this for the benefit. I think seeing this show up on like some kind of special GL. We've had this on our seasonal one. This episode, or the episodic one, I guess this is probably the proper name for that now. And I'm more interested in that, and maybe on a wave frame, this could be interesting. But when it comes to heavy weapons, it's just too big of a ask for the benefit out there, especially when you have so many. You just have straight up better options in the column. Yeah, I mean that's where I'm at. Court, how you feeling about reverberation?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about it. Yeah, there's been some testing recently. I've just thrown up the screenshot on our script here. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well. But yeah, it's a very small radius increase compared to a kind of like So looking at like Faithkeeper, it's got the same radius compared to, it's got a slightly decreased range compared to Faithkeeper with reverberation. It's like very small. And to be honest, I'm not going to be running. I'm not going to be running that perk on a precision. It's just not the nature of precisions. Impetus, I know you're a big fan of the tracking, so like to me, I'm in the same camp where it's you're using a precision for just kind of for damage, or just for that guaranteed or near guaranteed damage. High impacts are your ironically, as opposed to their frame name, they are the ones that are all to do with blast radius. They're all to do with like kind of
splash damage. Yeah,
splash damage. I don't see much point on using reverberation on either Faithkeeper or this. So I'm interested to see when we get maybe a high impact or even an adaptive and aggressive. They may have some potential, but high impacts are the same as precisions, where they get increased reserves. You do have that intrinsic +2 compared to your adaptives and aggressives like precisions. But yeah, I'm not quite convinced. The testing's very interesting, just because you can see visually the actual blast radius increase. And funnily enough, Faithkeeper at 30 blast radius plus danger zone plus explosive light has a massive radius when it comes to blast to your splash damage, which is just funny. I mean, I'm not running danger zone on Faithkeeper, but it's funny to see the comparison between reverberation. It's almost like double the radius compared to danger zone. So yeah, in terms of Grave Robber, I am a little bit more friendly to Grave Robber, though I'm not buying into the hype because of that 3-second cooldown. I think it's just not, 3 seconds is both quite a short but also long time in game, and you do have to juggle around, and maybe it's a nice combination with bipod because you do have 2 rockets, but then you've got the problem with bipod on the precision. It's already reducing your damage down when it's one of the least damaging rocket launcher frames out there. So it's conceptually a good idea. And again, if we get Grave Robber on a rocket launcher that's not a precision in the future, then I'd be like, okay, this is a little bit interesting for your Arcane Needle Warlocks or your Stasis Hunters with their melees. You've got 2 for Stasis Hunter, and then 3 for your Warlocks. That's very good, like DPS, if you can cut down your reloads by not reloading at all. And if you can really fine tune that within that 3-second cool, or beyond that 3-second cooldown, you might be doing some serious damage. But again, it's not really the play for me when it comes to a precision rocket. Saint, did you say anything about Grave Robber there?
No, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at its competition, so to say, in this situation, and I'm just thinking, if I am a precision rocket enjoyer, that is not what I'm keen in on here. I'm thinking I finally have a precision rocket with meta traits on it, right? You get in reconstruction, or you get in bait and switch on a precision frame, which, yeah, if you're somebody that favors this frame type, what a day for you to get some just juiced traits on the frame that you actually want to use. And so that's, I mean, that's pretty much where my head is at with this thing. You can actually get a precision frame rocket that has meta rocket traits on it.
Yeah, and so I wasn't as friendly towards Faithkeeper those weeks ago at the start of the episodes, just purely because I saw the perks for Crowning Duologue. We knew about the perks beforehand, and I still think Palmyra B's a better option compared to Faithkeeper. And then Crowning Duologue's your kind of, like, if you want to really play into I'm going into a Nightfall or an activity that's got a ton of vehicles. We do have like a few of them, like Proving Grounds has got a ton of like tanks and those sort of vehicles if you want to really guarantee of bringing them down. And we do have some values here in terms of like stacking. So deconstruct, if you want to get a deconstruct and then pair that with Hacky Breach Armaments, that's a 61% damage increase to tanks and like Streakers, Cyclops, that sort of stuff. And then for emplacements and stasis crystals and that's a 82% damage increase, and that's huge. That's a lot more than you can get from any other kind of rocket launcher that does get Hacky Breach or deconstruct. So like Crowning Duologue's got a lot of like toys at its disposal for various activities, and I don't want to undermine that, but I think people are focusing on Grave Robber a little bit too fondly, when sure it has potential, but you're up against Reconstruction, Apex Predator, or Cold Comfort with Envious Assassin, and it's just not quite there. It's close. I've seen some damage testing, but I'm not overly convinced about Grave Robber. It's a neat perk, but like with a lot of these weapons, I think this is like let's try it out on like one of the least performing rocket launcher frames, and then we'll maybe see in the future high impacts, maybe even adapters get Grave Robber, and that's when I'm like, oh, this is interesting.
I will say for Strand Warlocks who maybe have Euphony unlocked, there is Hatchling Chain Reaction, which has never showed up on a rocket launcher before. It has showed up on a heavy grenade launcher. Carax's Distress from Rooted Nightmares gets that roll. If you want to go crazy with Threadlings, I'm just saying, you've got a tracking Threadling that can get 3 kills pretty immediately from the rocket launcher at a pretty good range,
And if you do enhance chain reaction, that also provides to your reserves, your inventory size stat, and it goes to 11, 12, 13, 13. So you need 2 reserve mods to get to that max instead of just 1 with air trigger. But if you're using hatchling, you obviously can't use air trigger. I will point out, I think there's been some discussion about if reconstruction and Envious can stack, because they're in separate columns. I noticed that immediately when I saw this at the start of the episode. They do not stack. They only provide 3 rockets, just like as if you had normal Envious Assassin. So that's a little bit unfortunate. I kind of thought that just with the way reconstruction works. It's not like Bipod where you just get intrinsically +2 to your magazine, where obviously that will stack on top of Envious, but with reconstruction, it's got its own thing going on compared to Envious. There was a small remnant of me. I thought maybe we will see like 5 rockets from those 2, but unfortunately not. It's just 3. It's very compared to last year, because I can remember we were quite Or at least I was quite unfriendly to crowning Duologue last year. I do remember vividly that episode where I was just like, what is the point of this rocket? Other than that it's got high inventory size stat, and that was before we had the increased precision reserves. So it's a lot, like we went from like F tier to maybe around about A tier in terms of like precision rockets and the overall kind of taking into consideration all rocket launchers across all frames.
What a strange weapon. Yeah, I'm not sold on it. I'm still waiting for an aggressive or an adaptive frame strand rocket launcher. I've got Semiotician, which is our high impact option that had field prep bipod. I think that's what I have on my roll. So that's been my strand rocket launcher of choice. The precision thing, the auto tracking missile is nice. I love that feature, but the frame malice for damage is what kills precisions for me. Even in GMs, I would rather run a different frame.
Yeah, I think in GMs, I would rather go for a high impact. Semioticians still our best kind of jack of all trades, your kind of workhorse rocket launchers for like grandmasters. That too also gets field, or I should say that gets field prep and bipod. This gets air trigger instead of field prep, but they're basically the same perk behind the scenes. Both of them will get 17 at base when you consider bipod, and then 18 at 1 reserve, and then 2 and 3 as well. So you only need 1 reserve to get that maximum of 18 rockets on a rocket. But I would still be more fond to use Semiotician compared to crowning Duologue. I want to get the deconstruct roll just for the memes of like, here's my anti-tank, anti-vehicle weapon. But yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I think I'm just looking at so did a little bit of testing as well. Obviously, the higher the total ammo capacity, so we're talking like numbers like 17 and 18, the more ammo you pick up from a brick. And for 17 and 18 rockets, so that's with bipod, you can get 4, 5, or 6 from a purple brick, and then 2 from an ammo finder brick, 2 from a cenotaph brick. And for 18 rockets, you get 3 or 4 from an Aeon's Sect of Insight brick. So a lot of rockets.
Yeah, it's definitely better than it was. We can say that for sure. If you really do value that tracking, you are eating good this Solstice. This is probably the biggest thing you're grinding for. So that's good to see that it's kind of caught up a little bit with the meta as it's shifted over the years. All right. Well, there's your Solstice weapon set breakdown. That is all we've got for episode 114. Thanks for listening, and thanks to our audio engineer, Autodidactos, for helping us sound our best each and every episode. You can find me by Saint_Kabir on social media, hanging out in the Discord server or in-game, still looking for that dead Grammary roll. Impetus, where can our listeners find you?
My name is Impetus. You can find me by that name in Discord and in Destiny, and lurking under our Twitter handle of Pod versus Enemies. Court, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me over on Discord and various social websites as Court Projects. Find me in game as Court, and you can find me over on Los Santos doing some Grand Theft Auto online, just doing some grind stuff, having a lot of fun over there. But I'll be back in the Destiny world soon enough. And lads, I don't think we talked about what we're doing next week. I think we'll talk about that behind the scenes.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Until then, enjoy yourselves. See you later.